Home is where our stories begin. Our Town, Our Kids works with local Kansas communities to reduce the number of their youth at risk for involvement in the juvenile justice system.
Hello, my name is Mary Esther Edwards, and I'm with OTOK. Today, I will be discussing decision-making points that may affect a youth's journey within the criminal justice system. First, I will discuss 4 professions that have a direct impact on a youth's journey within the criminal justice system. These 4 professions are law enforcement, Kansas Department of Corrections Juvenile Services, the County Attorney's Office, and the judge that presides over juvenile cases. Then, I will discuss social and environmental conditions that have an effect on a youth's life. Within this section, we will also hear from 3 different individuals who we talked to while we were in the field. This flowchart is an example of the various routes a youth may take when entering into the juvenile criminal justice system. I will refer back to this flowchart throughout this video to highlight crucial decision-making points that are made by law enforcement officers, KDOC Juvenile Services, the County Attorney's Office, and judges that affect the youth's journey through the criminal justice system. The first role that we will look at is law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers have the ability to arrest a youth, to release the youth to a custodian or guardian, to issue a citation ordering the youth to attend a court hearing, or to speak with the youth and instruct them to leave the scene. For the sake of this training, let's assume that the officer decides to arrest a youth. The police officer would call the juvenile intake officer with the Department of Corrections. That officer would fill out a DAI, Detention Assessment Instrument, by asking the police officer specific questions that provide demographic information of the youth and the crime that the youth is accused of committing. Based on the DAI score, the juvenile intake officer would provide a recommendation either to detain the youth or to release the youth to a custodian or guardian. For training purposes, we will assume that the DAI score was low enough to release the youth to their custodian or guardian and to issue a citation. The citation will be presented to the county attorney's office. The county attorney will decide if they want to file formal charges within the juvenile court, file informal charges and require the youth to complete an IIP, Immediate Intervention Program, or come to an agreement between the youth, the guardian, and the county attorney's office. Once the youth upholds obligations within the IIP or an agreement and remains out of trouble within a certain time frame, the county attorney's office will not file the citation with the courts. If the youth fails to successfully complete the IIP or the terms of the agreement, then the county attorney will file formal charges on the youth. To optimize this training video, we will assume that the county attorney filed formal charges with the court, and the case is being assigned to a judge who hears juvenile cases. After hearing from the prosecution, the defense attorneys, and the witnesses, the judge will provide an adjudication of the youth's case. The judge can find the youth guilty or not guilty of the charges. If the crime is serious enough, the judge can hand over the charges to adult court. For the sake of this training, we will assume that the youth was found guilty of the charges as a juvenile. After the youth receives their adjudication of guilty, they will set a disposition hearing at a later date. This provides opportunity for the attorneys or judge to order a predisposition report and review the findings or to hold a restitution hearing. At the disposition hearing, the judge will then either release the youth to a custodian for supervision, place youth on supervision with court services, place the youth on supervision through Kansas Department of Corrections Juvenile Services, or order the youth to be incarcerated at the Kansas Juvenile Correctional Complex. Within Kansas, the majority of youth are placed on community supervision with either court services or KDOC Juvenile Services. For the purposes of this training, we will assume that the youth was placed on juvenile intensive supervised probation through KDOC's Juvenile Services. Once a youth is placed on supervision, a CSO, Community Supervision Officer, will complete an intake and create a supervision plan with the youth. The supervision plan will have a couple of goals that need to be completed with a certain amount of time. The youth will also receive referrals to the appropriate resources needed based on the YLS results. As you see, There are multiple decision points that are made by 4 primary professions that can affect the youth's journey within the criminal justice system. One question that arises is, how did the youth come into contact with law enforcement or the county attorney's office? 3 different paths come to mind. First, the youth can be referred to the county attorney's office by school administrators, teachers, or school employees. Second, the youth's family members or parents can call law enforcement to report the youth's behavior or contact the county attorney's office or the juvenile court asking for help in controlling the youth. Third, a community member can call law enforcement and report suspected delinquent behavior of a youth. Another question that may arise is, what are the environmental and social aspects of a youth's life that may affect their chances of getting involved in the juvenile justice system? To answer this question, it is important to consider a couple things. Where does a youth reside? Do they reside in a small town or a big city? The size of the community and the resources provided within the community have an effect on the youth's access to services. Another question that comes to mind is, what is a youth's socioeconomic status? This is important to consider because an individual's socioeconomic status impacts their access to social services, healthcare, education, and housing options that are available to them. One individual who is a professional within the criminal justice system stated the following.
And when I look at these kids, and I look at their families, and I know the struggle, and I know the struggle is real. In poverty, that struggle is so hard just to get up every day, and it's not easy. And, to try to make sure that their kid gets an education, that's not at the top of their list. If you can't put food on the table, education for your child is not at the top of your list.
Another question that comes to mind is, what educational options are available to the youth? If they reside within a small town, do they have to take a bus to the next town to attend school? Does the school provide after-school activities, such as sports, music and art programs, and 4-H? If these programs or activities are offered, does the youth have access to transportation? What happens if there are no after-school activities in which the youth can participate? Now that we have reviewed some social and environmental conditions that may increase a youth's odds of coming into contact with the criminal justice system, we will briefly discuss cognitive development. The core skills that we use to think, read, learn, remember, reason, and pay attention are cognitive skills according to empirical research. These core skills work together and influence our everyday actions in conjunction with the social and environmental conditions that we are subjected to. The Kansas juvenile criminal justice system contends that most youth are competent at the age of 10. The Kansas Department of Corrections Juvenile Service Division can hold a youth in custody until the age of 22 and a half years old and the age of 23 in the community. Empirical evidence has shown that the cognitive development of human beings is not fully developed until the approximate age of 25 years old. This shows that an individual's mentality or way of thinking usually changes as they get older. However, an individual's mental health, social and environmental conditions will also play a role in an individual's cognitive development. During a conversation with a juvenile justice professional, this is what they had to say regarding teenage decision-making as related to their personal experience.
I tell people is, their kids will grow out of some of this. And I always like to compare it to myself. Now, if I would have been arrested, I would have been put in a group home. I would have been in more trouble.
Right.
Because I was always the daring one. And I would do whatever I could do because it was fun. I wasn't going to do anything that would hurt people. But boy, for fun, I would do about anything I thought I could get away with, and maybe not even get away with it. But I kind of grew out of that.
This was an example of how a juvenile justice professional discusses cognitive development with others by relating it to their own teenage years. They also tell us that they could have entered into the criminal justice system when they were a teenager due to the decisions that they made, but had a favorable social and environmental conditions that helped them stay out of the system. Part of the OTOK team asked individuals who were under 25 years old to tell us about a time a decision was made in their life that affected them and when they made a decision that affected their life during their teenage years. One individual discusses how the changing of their household dynamics had a lasting impact on their life.
An instance in my teenage years where someone made a decision that impacted my life. My parents got divorced, and so that took a toll on me and my sisters. And so I became like that second parent in my household. So that's kind of had long-term effects. And then where I made a decision, I decided to I worked full-time in high school to help my mom because of the divorce. So they're kind of intertwined.
There are a lot of decisions that are made by other individuals that have a lasting impact on our lives. Within this example, they did not have a choice or say regarding their parents getting divorced, and the impact that the divorce would have on the other individuals residing in their house, both emotionally and financially. They felt that they needed to take care of their siblings, which led to them becoming a co-parent within their teenage years. The purpose of this video was to provide an overview of decision points that are made within the juvenile justice system. We also discussed some social and environmental conditions that should be taken into account. Lastly, we heard from individuals discussing a time in their life where someone else made a decision that affected them or when they made a decision that affected them as a teenager. We also heard from individuals who are professionals within the juvenile justice system in Kansas. Thank you for your time and attention during this video. Have a great day.
Our Town, Our Kids is a pilot project funded through the Kansas Department of Corrections, Kansas Advisory Group, and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The university group is K-State Juvenile Justice Collaborative, a multidisciplinary team from Kansas State University, Fort Hays State University, and K-State Extension. Ultimately, Our Town, Our Kids aims to empower local communities with a scalable, comprehensive set of tools which will stand as an exemplar to other counties across Kansas and beyond. For more information, please go to our website at ourtownourkids.org or reach out to us directly with questions, concerns, and feedback. Thank you for your time and attention.